All right, well, welcome to the Global Church Podcast, and I'm Scott McManigal. I'm one of the Global Missions Pastors here at FBC, and I've got some special guests here with me today, Hunter Mayo and two of his kids, Brandon and Bailey, and they got to take a special trip over the Christmas break. And so we wanted to spend this episode just kind of interviewing you guys and have you just tell us all just what you experienced and where you went. And so, yeah, where'd you go?
You guys want to talk about that? Where did we go? When did we leave?
So we left December 25th, Christmas Day, around 3 o'clock from our house. So we got the festivities out of the way. We were able to hang out with family and open presents and stuff, and then we headed out. It was me, my sister Bailey, my father, and my older brother, Seth. The flight was 12 and a half hours. Wasn't the best part of the trip, obviously, but
That was just a Doha.
Yeah, that was just half of it. But we went to Nepal for 10 days. 6 of those days we stayed in the village with one of our missionaries that we help over there, Gopal and his family. And then the last 4 days of our trip, we were in Kathmandu, more of the city, and visited his church that he kind of helps with there.
Yeah, so did while you were there with Gopal, did he give you any of his background and like what he did before he was a pastor and things like that?
Yeah, we asked a lot of questions just because one of the cool things about the trip is you're hanging out with them all the time. So you've got tons of time to find out about.
Did you guys stay in their house or?
Yeah, one of the things about these people and Gopal and his family is they're just gracious and hospitable people.
Huh.
He moved out of his house so that we could live in his house.
Wow.
And he moved to the old church building,
Okay.
which they don't really use a whole lot anymore. But
Right.
it doesn't have beds, it doesn't have furniture,
Huh.
it doesn't have indoor plumbing. But we had all of that. He gave that to us. So
Wow.
we were really blessed. I had warned the kids. I didn't know what it was going to be like. It might be like camping.
Yeah.
But no, actually, we were living a pretty good life while he, keep in mind, he's on crutches. His wife's on crutches.
That's right.
And they're sleeping on the floor.
So they're still on crutches from their motorcycle
Yeah,
accident.
they were hit by a young man, and both of their right legs were hurt. His wife's Rita's leg was hurt really bad. They had to completely restructure her knee. He has a rod in his leg. But praise God, while we were there, the Lord just allowed some healing work there. So his leg, he was able to walk by the end of the week without a crutch.
Wow.
It was I think it was 2 days.
Yeah.
The third day we prayed a lot. The third night we were there, and by the fourth day, the morning, he was walking without a crutch a lot more.
Wow.
And I don't think he used it that whole day. And he used it a little bit the following days, like going up and down stairs and stuff. But other than that, he was walking around fine. And his wife's leg was we could tell that it was feeling a little better, but she still had to use a crutch a lot. But yeah, it was really nice.
Well, this accident took place back in September.
7 months ago, yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, they had to live in Kathmandu for a time because
Right.
I think his wife was in the hospital maybe 4-6 weeks.
Yeah.
And with the PT and everything they needed to do, they were in Kathmandu for quite some time.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, we learned a lot about his life, and it's a really neat story because he grew up in the mountains. He was just a mountain boy in a place where I think he said it was a 4-day journey to the closest town or something.
Wow.
So, of course, he had villagers that lived nearby, but it's not like they traded with money. They traded in things.
Yeah.
He told the story that he had one shirt. Remember the story about he had one shirt. So when his mom washed it, he was telling the story about how he would dry by laying out in the sun. But anyway, he's from, it's all Hindu.
Right.
He's from the highest caste,
Right.
So that's kind of an advantage. Happened to be born into the highest caste,
Right.
but he was a very proud Hindu. He was taught his religion from a very young age, and he was proud of it.
Uh-huh.
And when he was about 20, I'm going to get some of these ages wrong, but when he was about 20, somebody he knew had a Bible. So he decided, I'm going to read this Bible because I want to be able to defend against Christianity. Because he's from the priestly caste, so I need to be able to defend against it. And in reading the New Testament, I think he said he read one gospel, and he said, wow, this God is really powerful.
Wow.
With all these miracles.
Yeah.
But in their theology with many gods, it was
Right.
just one of many, right?
Right,
So
right.
he's like, I won't speak against that God because he's so powerful. So maybe I'll just withhold from speaking against that God.
Wow.
And then he read Revelation. And when he read Revelation, he realized, okay, wait a minute, there's a judgment here. And I'm on the wrong side.
And this is as an unbeliever.
As an unbeliever, yeah. Totally. And so he became a Christian without anyone being involved. I mean, it was
Wow.
a situation where it was him and God and the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
And so he becomes a believer, and he said, I became a Christian. I didn't really know much about what that meant, but he started reading the New Testament. And then the Lord, at that time, he was a teacher in kind of a rural area.
Right.
And the Lord drew him back
in
to
the government school.
in a government
system,
school. Yeah, that's right. And then the Lord drew him back to kind of the Plains area where he's now at. And he was a teacher in the government school there, but he started a church. In fact, it's kind of a funny story too. He talked to a pastor and was like, I want to be involved in your church. But that pastor had a church that seemed like it was a distant from where he was. And the pastor said, no, that's not what you're going to do. I think the Lord's calling you to start a church there. So that's kind of how he got involved in leadership.
Right.
He's not formally seminary trained, but he knows a lot of scripture.
Right.
He, of course, he's been, I guess, a Christian now for 20-something years. And he's just, you guys have given him a lot of material. He's been doing a lot of translating work.
Right.
But he's...
Yeah, he's translated all of our materials. First, it was translated into Hindi. Jai Pandey translated all the chronological lessons into Hindi. And then from English and Hindi, I think he used both, Gopal then translated it all into Nepali. And so, yeah, he's been the main one that's done all that translation of all those lessons.
Yeah. So it's really neat. They have about 200 members now in their church, and they have about... did he say how many branch churches? It seemed like 4 or 5 branch churches. We visited 2.
Yeah.
It's really neat to see his congregation. They're really a people of faith, and they just pray expectantly. They know God. They have a real strong relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
So it's really neat.
So while you were there, did he share any testimonies about the lives of any of the people in the church, of how, God has been, through the teaching and providing the foundational chronological teaching, and how people are becoming established in the faith, and how that's being manifested, there in their village, in their culture? Yeah,
absolutely. I think one of the cool things about the program, if you will, and I don't, it's the best way I can describe it, is he uses kind of the strategy you've taught him, which is creation to Christ, and then growing in the grace of God, and those books as well.
Right.
So that anytime anyone shows any interest, he and a team of elders will go to their homes in the evenings. So most evenings they're hanging out with the families, because most of these people are farmers, so they're working during daylight hours.
Right.
And then they'll go and they'll just teach through creation to Christ, and that's their program. They have just this. As formalized as you want to call it, but they don't baptize anybody until a year.
Right.
So that it's kind of this thinking that, hey, let's get them some healthy teaching for a year. So they spend the whole year. Remember, these people have never heard of Christ.
Right.
It's a completely Hindu country.
So they're teaching through creation to Christ for evangelism. That's how they're evangelizing these people.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
When they first decide that they're going to consider anything, then the first thing they do is, okay, well, let's educate you. Let's tell you what you want to learn. You said you want to learn. Let's tell you something. So they use that creation of Christ. Yeah.
I think one thing is also, he said a lot of like the injuries that happen, like a lot of people around the village that are also not Christians always tell them like about Gopal, and they're like, his God is like one that heals. Like, we've heard of a lot of stories. And so when he goes to these places, he doesn't just pray for them for healing, but he says he starts with the actual creation of Christ. So then, like, if healing does occur, they know like who did it, and it's not just like they just bounce it off like one of their gods and say, oh no, it was actually this God. So he starts with that. So then if they get healed, they can he can I guess build on that creation of Christ. But if not, then he more can explain why like sometimes God doesn't heal, but those are also for like the good times.
Yeah.
So that's like one other way he uses the creation of Christ.
So God's doing exactly the same thing there, that a lot of the same things that we can read about him doing through the book of Acts.
Absolutely. You feel like you're in the book of Acts.
Yeah.
It was the fourth or fifth day, and I said, so Gopal, I'm just trying to understand, how do people come to faith?
Yeah.
And he says, well, about half come to faith through some miraculous thing that God does in their lives. And
To get their attention.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
But it's always, he doesn't always do the healing right away.
Yeah.
It's a process of time, and it's kind of neat how the Lord works, because as Brandon was saying, that they teach their creation to Christ.
Right.
And the people who do find physical healing, the spiritual healing came first,
Right.
which is the greater need,
Right.
which is
Right.
just the beauty of the gospel. And,
Right.
and it's so neat to hear those stories, but knowing that the spiritual need is met, and that the physical need is just kind of an afterthought,
Right.
And
it's a secondary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the God just chooses to do as a special blessing and to make himself known.
Right.
And he is making himself known. It's known by many
Right.
in the village that Gopal's God is very powerful, and that's well known.
Yeah.
A funny story is that his brother is the Hindu priest in the village.
Wow.
And his brother's house is 300 yards from his house.
Huh.
So they're real close. They talk every week.
Huh.
They get along, and it's just right around the corner.
Yeah.
And
As many times as I've been there, I never realized that.
yeah.
Huh.
So
Huh.
I had a chance to
Interesting.
meet him, and he didn't speak English, so I didn't really say much, but talked to his son.
Yeah. Okay. Did he? Of course, you saw the new building that they have.
Yeah.
You said he stayed in. He and his wife slept in the old church building.
That's right.
So you saw the new building, the cement block building. Did he tell you about how just God provided for all that and how they were able to build that building? Did he tell you that story?
A little bit. I mean, I think that it's interesting. The Lord kind of gives him a vision. Gopal has very good leadership skills. You know,
Right.
the Lord gives each of us different blessings. And
Sure.
he just happened to give him leadership skills.
Yep.
And the Lord will give him a little vision. And he shares it with the church. And these people who are farmers, who, their economic status is certainly nothing like what we have.
Yeah.
But, they're able to raise up enough money to fund a church as nice as the building we saw,
Right.
which is, and then it's just been really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, he was sharing with us that as, and again, this is a rural church living out in, like you said, farmers. And they themselves raised, it was like $12,000 or $13,000 of the 20 that they needed to build it. And he said a number of the families at the time that they were building the new church building were also building new homes, reconstructing their homes. And they all stopped the construction on their homes until the church was done. They wanted the church to be done first. And I just thought, what a testimony of, for one, his leadership, but of the rapport that he and that ministry has, and the value that the people have on that church, and what it means to them. And I mean, there's so many churches around the world that are constantly looking for outsiders to provide for them. He shared testimonies of other churches in the area where other mission organizations are so involved financially that the people don't even raise up the funds to put up outhouses for themselves at the church. They let the organization do all that, and then here these people, they stop the construction on their own homes to give to the completion of the church building first. And it's an amazing testimony.
He sets that example, though, because the school that he has, and we'll talk more about the school in a few minutes, but
Right.
They needed a vehicle to get some of the kids who live far away to the school.
Right.
And, he sold land and took that money to buy that little van so that they could do that. So it's just their response to God, it's them getting their priorities right. It's really neat to see that.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I had that kind of that kind of priority status as well. It's like the Lord comes first and in everything.
Yeah.
And it's some of the things I took away from the trip are rethinking how I think about how I devote my time, money, resources, and everything else, and how how strong is my faith? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that land that he sold to, buy the van or other things, even the land that the new church is on, it's all land that he inherited.
Yeah,
he inherited from his family.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, you talked about the school along with the church. He's also started a school. So why don't you guys tell us about the school?
Bailey, you want to talk about school?
Yeah, so the school, there's 100 kids in the school now, and it's from grades kindergarten, or actually preschool, and preschool starts at 2 years old, all the way up to grade 5. So that's really awesome. They're really reaching out to a lot of people.
Wow.
One thing that was really interesting about the school is because it's a government school, you can't actually say anything about the Bible.
No, they're actually private school.
Well, yeah,
But
private.
the rules still apply.
Yeah, the rules still apply that you can't say anything about the Bible. So we were teaching them a parable from the gospel. We couldn't actually mention the Bible at all. So that was very interesting.
Yeah. So who are the kids that go to the school?
So anyone in the village and in the 2 nearby villages.
Yeah.
Yeah, the van can go around and some people walk and bike can.
Yeah. So in Nepal is like India, and there's the caste system. You have the high. I don't know the names of all the different castes. I know there's the high caste, and then there's low caste, and then there's even the untouchables.
Yeah.
And so the kids in the school, what caste are they from?
So his school is actually all caste, which normally is not the thing. Normally schools are just each class has their own school. So that's one extra thing that's really awesome about his school. Yeah.
I believe, I could be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure we went to one village, and when driving through, and we actually stopped for a moment, and he had to pay this young lady because she had done some work for him. And after we had started back up, he actually told us that where we were was one of the untouchable areas. No one really comes here, and it was just crazy how you could see how these people were on their own for sure. There was no one helping them. All the houses are a lot of them are broken in some way or another. But they can't be fixed, and so they're just kind of living with what they have, and they're not expecting people to help them. So when they see someone helping them, it really surprises them and really amazes them. So.
Especially when it's somebody from the high caste.
Yeah, that was one thing. Gopal's wife actually is it one caste or two castes lower than him,
Right.
And so that marriage was one a big shock to a lot of people around,
Right.
And especially his family and his siblings and stuff.
Now go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of that, I didn't even get to tell you the part of the story with Gopal's testimony.
Yeah.
His family rejected him.
Right.
He was not allowed to eat with his family. I think he even said he was not allowed to set foot in their homes, or some of his relatives. He was not even permitted to set foot.
For becoming a Christian, or for marrying someone from a low caste?
No, from becoming a Christian. That was another offense, to marry someone from a low caste.
Right, right.
His dad at one point told him, you can have your inheritance or you can have Christ. And he said, well, Dad, I'm going to take Christ. And his dad did change later. But the beauty of this whole story is by the end of his parents' life, they both became believers a few months before they passed away.
Right. That's right.
So,
I remember that.
Glory to God for that. And just amazing to see the power of the gospel break through that Hindu religion and the lostness there. And so in his family, he's got a number of sisters who believe. His stepmom, his dad had 2 wives, so his stepmom also is a believer. And cousins and other relatives who have come to faith. Just neat how the gospel's broken through that.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there are still a good amount of his siblings which are not, sadly.
That's true, unfortunately,
Which is, we met a few of them. We actually, one of our days, I think after one of the second church that we visited, we went to pray for his stepmom, and there was 3 of his sisters there, and when we started to pray, 2 of them left with one of their son to go shopping. And after we prayed, my dad asked Gopal why she left, and he said, well, since we started praying, she didn't want to stay around because those 2 of his sisters actually weren't believers. The other one was, and so they just don't even want to be around him when they're praying, which is
interesting. Yeah. So now in the school, a lot of the kids are from the untouchable class, right?
Yeah, it's really neat. His school has several unique characteristics. and he started this in 2014.
Right.
And the whole mission from the very beginning was, let's get a good education to kids who wouldn't have it otherwise.
Yeah.
So the kinds of kids he's teaching wouldn't be going to school,
Right.
or they'd be going to the government school. And it's really unfortunate that the government school, if you're in the lowest caste, you kind of get shoved aside. So his school has a really unique reputation because not only is he teaching these people from the low caste, he's actually also bringing in high caste kids. And the reason they're coming is because it has a reputation of learning so much. So he's an English school.
Okay.
He teaches English medium,
Right.
so which is kind of cool because then we can teach the kids.
Huh.
Yeah.
But all their books are in English.
Yeah.
They do have one subject in Nepali, which is the Nepali subject. But
Okay.
all their other science, math, everything else is in English.
Real? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so it's really neat. So the school has a reputation. So these high caste families are paying
Yeah.
to send their students there.
Right.
And then the low caste students come on scholarship.
Right.
And in fact, most of the scholarships are paid from people here in FBC.
Right.
So
Yeah. Just recently, the prime timers came to us, and they were, they would collect offering among the prime timers for at the time they were supporting a project in Kenya, and realized that really FBC was no longer really associated with that project, and so they wanted to be a part of a project that we were associated with. So we suggested that they consider partnering with Gopal in the school. And so that's what they decided to take on. So they're as they collect their offerings are going to be going for scholarships for untouchable kids to go to the school.
yeah, and we met them. We played with them. We taught them, and they're a neat group of kids, really neat group of kids, and it's really neat to see just how the Lord's used that too. I think as we were there, they went from like 95 to 100. And since we left, they're now up to 105.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is that a lot of, especially the low caste families, they're telling their neighbors.
Yeah.
And so it's just growing. And the largest population right now is the pre-K. They have a huge pre-K class.
Really?
Yeah.
30
They have
little
30,
kids.
30
Wow.
pre-K kids.
Yeah.
And they're learning the alphabet,
Yeah.
both Nepali alphabet and the English alphabet.
Huh.
And so, yeah, it's,
Now, are these kids also taught the Bible while they're there and a part of the school?
they're not allowed to. So he used to be able to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
the Nepali government kind of cracked down
Okay.
on proselytizing. So
Gotcha.
he is no longer
teaches-
allowed to teach the Bible.
He teaches very biblical like virtues and statute.
Right.
So like he like teaches them how to like be a good like neighbor and like treat others like how you would want to be treated, but he doesn't like technically associate the Bible with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But what he does do
Yeah.
is he tells the families, hey, we're going to have the kids have a Christmas party, and it's not during school hours, and it's going to be at the church, so you're welcome to come. And what he does is then the parents come, and then he presents the gospel in that context. So he can do it through those means. He just can't do it directly during school hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the school's definitely working as a bridge to build
Oh, yeah.
relationships into the families of the
for sure.
community. And
Yeah. And the teachers are all Christians.
Right.
In fact, there's some really cool things about this, and I'll
Right.
probably talk too much.
Nope.
Some of the teachers, one of the teachers in particular, James, he grew up in the orphanage of Jai Pandi.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, and
Yes.
so
Right.
as he became of age
Yeah.
and he was well educated, then and I guess Jai Pandi's orphanage teaches English too, so he was able to then teach in Gopal's school. And there are a number of folks, all the teachers are Christians. Most of them, many of them were taught, Gopal was teaching them himself.
Yeah.
Like starting in, I think, 2000 and I can't remember the years, but maybe 2010, he just had a group of kids that lived close by that he started teaching.
Right.
And many of them have grown up now and are old enough to teach.
Yeah.
So and they pray every day
Yeah.
before school, the teachers, and there was a couple times where I saw teachers praying with the students. So they don't hide it completely. They just have to be careful.
Yeah. So did he talk at all about like when I was there a couple years ago, the school teachers were also Sunday school teachers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then they were also going around and holding Sunday schools in various villages. think at the time they had teaching going on in nine other villages, and in 6 of those 9, they were becoming churches. The parents started to come, and so is that still going on with the teachers? Or?
It might be. He did say something about Sunday school. I didn't ask enough questions to dig into that one, but they definitely. I don't know if it's the school teachers or they've got lady leaders in those villages who are doing some of the leadership.
Right.
One of the interesting things about the culture there is that about 60 to 80% of the men between the ages of 20 to 40 move away for work.
Right.
So they're actually working in Qatar, Saudi Arabia,
right.
United Arab Emirates, and other places
Singapore,
like Malaysia, Singapore. Yeah. So they have a real absence of men.
Right.
So a lot of the leadership comes from the ladies.
Gotcha.
So in the churches we visited, actually, that was one of the big prayer requests was raising up of men. But when you looked around, there weren't any. Yeah. So it's a struggle there.
Yeah. Huh. So what are some? You shared a little bit ago some takeaways for you. Coming back from the trip, what were some takeaways for you two going there as high school students and being exposed? Is this your first overseas trip?
Yes, without like a total church like sponsored. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. One takeaway I had actually, it was kind of weird. It's really weird, but all the kids at the school, they have I guess the preschool kids, everyone, they can just kind of leave their classroom when they want to and just go outside and like run. They have like this one little like slide on there that they all just run up and slide down, or they'll run up the slide and then slide down. But one thing I like noticed was there was not like I don't think I saw one child like cry at all. Like while like I was like watching them play at the like playground or what. Like you'd see them like they'd take a rough hit or something, but then they just get up and dust themselves off and go play. And I felt like that was really like something like here like when we were kids, like something happens and we cry because we know like we have this feeling that someone will come save us and like help us out, and so we get used to that fact of like someone's always going to be there. But there they just grow up like especially the untouchables, like they have to fend for not completely fend for themselves, but they have to live life for themselves and like take care of their own families. Especially some of these younger kids are taking care of their like parents and stuff and helping them out. And I feel like that's just one thing, like they're used to like getting hit down and bumped around, but they know that they can just get back up and keep going. And that's one thing I kind of took away was I think I need to be more like flexible and be like, okay, I got knocked down. Like I don't need someone else's help to get back up. I need to help other people and to get myself back up. So that was one thing I took away from the trip.
Cool.
It was really cool.
And then one thing I took away was like just the joy in the kids was so great. And they weren't like whining or crying. It was just so like the smiles on their faces were 24/7. Never wanting to just sit down. They're always just wanting to play.
Yeah.
So that was just awesome.
So did you guys play a lot with the kids?
Definitely.
The 2 days we helped in the school, we were able to hang out with the kids and play with them a lot. Yeah. The first day was I feel like they were a little timid of us and like they would look at us and then they just like kind of run away. Yeah. But the second day was a lot more like we would play with them and like throw them around and well, not throw them around, but like, play with them and stuff, and it was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's cool. Now this isn't the first trip you've done with your kids.
Yeah, so I think it was 2014. You and I had lunch, and I told you at that time, Scott, I really want to take my high school senior, Levi at the time, somewhere in the world, and I want to take him to see another culture and to learn about what the Lord's doing. And at that time, you recommended that I take Levi to the Polkat folks and Zacchaeus in Kenya. Sorry, and James and Zacchaeus were my hosts at that time. Yeah. And that was an amazing trip. Really just eye-opening to see how the Lord is working and moving among the Polkat people. And really, really neat trip. And then when it became Seth's turn, I stayed inside the United States for a couple reasons. Seth wanted to take some friends from high school, and so we wanted to do something that we could do inside the United States. And then this is Brandon's turn. So Brandon's a senior in high school, and so I approached you again at lunch and said, okay, Scott, I'm going to do this again. What are your thoughts? And so you suggested to go to Nepal. And one of the reasons you said was because, unfortunately, Gopal's been denied a visa 3 times.
Right.
And so he hasn't seen a lot of other people from our church.
Right.
He's seen yourself and a handful of others.
Right.
But really just hasn't had that exposure that the benefit that these other guys have of being able to come in October every other year.
Right.
For and many of them have been coming, over a decade.
Yeah.
And he hasn't had that. So your suggestion was, and you also really appreciate what they're doing over there.
Exactly. Too. Yeah. What God's doing in that work. Yep.
So the combination of those two things really created a mutual blessing. I hope that we were able to bless him in the spirit of fellowship, but we were certainly blessed without a doubt. So anyway, so I said, Brandon, we're going to go to Nepal. And then Bailey and Seth said, well, wait a minute. Can we come too? So I said, sure, why not? So we made it a foursome, and it was a great trip. And I would encourage anybody to do that. I think you would obviously be the person with the wisdom to know where's the right place to go and at what time. But these people are very hospitable, and they appreciate visitors. And it's a mutually blessing type of fellowship. It's really, really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of times as Americans, because we're so affluent, as Americans in general, we're very affluent, and we send teams out and we make trips, and I think because of our wealth, we always have the mentality, and we're always viewed as being the ones who do the giving. And just, the opportunity to go to places like this where these churches are led by guys like Gopal that are very established in the faith, very mature in the faith, have a great relationship with God, and are doing a great job of discipling other people and establishing their churches in the faith. To go and see that and learn from them, so to speak, and to, have the opportunity, like you said, it was mutual, have the opportunity for them to be a blessing to you, not just you go to, be a blessing to them, but, just for them to be a blessing to you, and just being so hospitable and opening themselves up and receiving you, and, just all that they've communicated and exposed you to and all like that, I just think is just huge for our relationship, as a church with them, because we've been working with them for a long time, and like you said, we've tried to bring Gopal here a number of times just because God is doing an amazing work, and we want the church to hear about it. We want the church to meet them, and so far we haven't been able to bring them. And so it was just exciting to me that you guys were able to go over there and spend that time with them, and I believe just, enhance our relationship with him, that because we're from the same body, and a lot of times, guys like him, all that he knows of FBC is Jim and I, or my dad. My dad was, the one that originally was meeting with him, and so it was super exciting for me that you guys could go over there and spend that time with him and had the experience that you had. And so how, just in general, how would you say that these trips, taking your kids, to expose them to, first to Kenya and with the Pokot, and now to Nepal and with Gopal, just how's it affecting your family, in general?
Yeah, I think it gives a global focus or global view of our faith, because, James and Zacchaeus and their families, I have lifelong friends now. Right. In that area, so we communicate by WhatsApp. Yep. And when something happens, when Pastor Peter died, I was one of the people that received that information directly in WhatsApp, and we were able to share texts about that. And anytime a life event happens, or just sometimes we just catch up over WhatsApp, and it's neat to have that lifelong friendship with people around the world. And I expect the same to be true for Gopal. We've already exchanged some emails, and I expect that we'll be communicating, from here on out. It's like, we have friends on the other side of the world now. Yeah. And it just enriches your faith, because as your fellowship bubble grows, the uniqueness and the blessings that God has given each person, you get to receive some of that. And that's really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be added to their repertoire now. Like whenever we go to Kenya and meet with the Pokot, they always want to know about the people that they've met. You know,
Yeah.
how's Pastor Mark doing? And, you know, Mike Thomas, other guys on our missions committee, and my dad, you know, and well, they always ask about your family, you know, because you've been there and they've stayed in your home when they come to the conference. And so now I'm sure Gopal's going to do the same thing. We're actually headed there in May, the beginning of May. And he's going to do the exact same thing, ask how you guys are. And so that relationship has begun. And, but again, it's, you know, I can't express it enough how important it is from the standpoint of our missions committee that people, you know, other people in FBC are able to go and build these relationships, because it's one of our 6 core values, enduring relationships. And we don't mean that as just, you know, us as individuals in our relationship with them, but we're talking about us as a body, us as a church. And so, you know, just the fact that you guys were desirous of going over there, and you went over there and spent that time, and, you know, it's just huge for our relationship. And so it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making the suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to do it.
Absolutely.
It was fun.
Is there any other testimonies or any other stories that you wanted to share, or any other thoughts that you had? Or
there's one story that came to mind that I don't think my dad talked about with Gopal, but when he first became a Christian, there was one like time where he got on a train to go to church. Yeah. And while he was on the train, I think it was either he went on the train with one of his best friends, or like he got on the train and his best friend was on the train too, going somewhere. And they started talking, and his best friend asked him where he was going, and he said, "Well, I'm going to church." So then his friend said, "Oh, well then I'll come to church with you, I guess." And they both went to church. And then when his friend asked him like how long he was staying, he's like told him how long he was staying. He goes, "All right, I'll stay that long too." And then he said, "Well, I think and then Gopal was like, it just kept going on and on. Gopal said, "I think I'm going to like go to like a pastor school." And he said, "Okay, I'll do that too." And Gopal never really expected like anything that much to happen with him. He thought, well, he's doing this because I'm doing it. Once like I go off and start like leading a church or something, he'll probably just slowly fade away. But now he is one of like the main pastors and like leaders at the church in Kathmandu that they go to, and still to this day like is a really big believer. We met with him, and he made some funny jokes.
Oh, that Akash?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he talked to us about it. He's a really nice guy, really lovable, really big.
Yeah.
for Nepali guy for sure.
Yeah.
But it was really great just to see like that was an example of like this guy just had like blind faith and said, well, I'm just gonna follow Gopal, and now he's still to this day like kind of following Gopal and following him to lead, and so that was really cool. Yeah.
So you met with their church in Kathmandu as well. Yeah.
Our second to last day, or I guess it was the second Saturday we were there right before we left. Yeah. We got to go to their church in Kathmandu, which is actually just like one of his like an apartment kind of. Mm-hmm. So you walk in, there's like a rectangular room that's probably 10 yards by like 3 yards wide. You have your bathroom door on your right. You have a room to your left, and then you have your kitchen to your right a little farther. And we started sitting in there. We arrived, I guess, a little early for church, and we just started talking to like the main pastor that's been like kind of talking more recently. And slowly people just started coming into like, you were shoulder to shoulder with everyone in this room.
Wow.
And it was probably 25, 30 people in this little room. Yeah. And so we're just tight up there, just sitting there. But it was great. Yeah, it was a really good, fun time. Yeah.
There's neat things the Lord's doing. I mean, like I remember one story. There's a young man who's probably 20, and he wanted to go to Bible school. And his dad said, well, you probably need to go to the Middle East and work like everybody else, you know. And he said, well, I'm really praying about going to Bible school in Kathmandu. And they're farmers. They didn't have the economic means to do that. Yeah. Well, just so happens South Korea, Christians in South Korea, wanted to sponsor people to go to Bible school in Kathmandu. And through pastors, it's kind of like pastors texting pastors. And, Gopal said, well, actually, I have 2 candidates right here. And there were 2 scholarships left. It was just kind of the Lord working, and that type of stuff is happening all the time. Yeah. It's really, really neat.
Did he tell you at all about the other pastors that he's been training and discipling, passing the lessons on that?
A little bit, yeah. I think we met some of the other pastors. Yeah. So they had a leadership meeting. Every Monday they have a leadership meeting. So we were able to sit through that and participate. And we didn't understand everything because they didn't translate everything, but it was encouraging. Yeah. But he's got several leaders who to do what they're doing. What those leaders do is they are on the team that goes to those visitors' homes. Gopal isn't the only one doing that.
Right.
They spread out and distribute that job.
Right. Right.
So that's a lot of what those pastors are doing.
Yeah.
Is doing the visitations, and teaching through creation to Christ. And that's a big burden there. Yeah. Because people come to the church not knowing anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's just the leaders in his area there. Then there's we were there a year ago. There was like 60 pastors from all over Nepal that he has been meeting with once a month. He began with Creation to Christ with them and did a conference and taught those lessons and gave them copies of it to use in their churches. And then he went on to Position in Christ. And then when we went there a year ago, we, together with him, taught them Acts. And now I'm pretty sure he's gone on to Romans and Ephesians even with them. And so... yeah, he's not only has his own church he's discipling, then the leadership in that church, but this school, then teaching in other villages in his area, and then still equipping another 50 or 60 pastors from all over Nepal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really neat. It's really neat to see that. Yeah. And the Lord's really opening people's eyes to the light of the gospel.
Yeah, amen. Yeah.
I think just one last thing, because this just came to my mind too. But our New Year's Eve, we went to I was a little tiring for me because I was tired for the whole day, but we went into their church at around 7:00 and we had probably around 25 people, so not too many, like as much as like the actual church service. But we just sat around in a circle, we prayed, and we sang songs for 5 hours until midnight. And it was just amazing.
I know at the beginning we were like 5 hours. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna be really bored.
Yeah.
But it was just the crazy, like just the faith that they have is just so strong. And even though we can't understand what they're saying most of the time, you just know that God is present in that place and time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I was like, well, sitting here for 5 hours, I was already almost falling asleep at dinner. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. Yeah. And so we started off with my dad doing like a little 40-minute lesson that he came up with. I think my older brother talked a little bit too. But then we just I think we sang 2 songs, and then we prayed about some of the churches, and then we sang like 2 more songs, and then Gopal started asking each person individually, or each like group of family that was there, about like what they needed like prayer for. And it was just soon like time just started flying by, and I was just like, wow, this is amazing. And one thing I really liked or loved about them was their prayer is not like I was very surprised at first, because when they pray, it's not just one of them talking to God. It's everyone like having their own conversations with God, which I feel like that's the way to pray is everyone should be. It's not just like one person like being like the delegate and like the ambassador to talk to like Christ, but it's like all of us should be talking to our Father like all the time. And that was one thing that was great, was like you have everyone starting to pray just for this one person and their family, and then slowly like people's like end, and then you have one person that like keeps it going, and after they finish, like we all say amen together, and we like it's not just like
so they're all praying at the same time.
It's just it's everyone just talking to God and like having their own conversations and having like their own moments. It was super uplifting.
And they did that for every family. They would ask the family's needs, and they would pray, and they would ask the next family's needs, and they would pray. And that's why it took a couple hours.
Oh yeah. That's what took a lot of time. But it was
they're praying
amazing.
People. They are praying people. It's not just these piddly 15-second prayers. I mean,
they mean
and
it.
they're in it, you know, and they're it's their whole body's in it. They're praying.
Amazing.
They're believing. They're
That's awesome.
That's great.
So did they ask you guys to sing as a family while you were there?
No.
Well, they did ask Seth.
There was a moment where they asked Seth if he would play a song on the guitar, because he was like kind of messing around before we started like the whole like singing and stuff. Actually him and Gopal, one of Gopal's sons, or I guess his only son, we were all messing around with like instruments and just kind of like making all these beats and like just having fun. But yeah, so they asked Seth to play a song, but he didn't really since his phone wasn't working and he didn't really know any songs off the top of his head. And he's not an amazing guitar player. He's pretty good, but he's not too good. So we didn't do any of that. But yeah, they did sing a lot. They actually did do one performance, I guess, or something. They played a song and they danced, and I guess it was more of a traditional dance. That was cool seeing that. But yeah, it was nice. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right. Any last stories that come to mind?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, we just really appreciate you going and taking the time and then making the investment. And I know that you viewed it as a privilege and that's something that you could invest in your own family. But I know it was a real investment in them and their ministry and our relationship with them. And so, on the behalf of our missions committee, we really thank you guys for, in that sense, being our ambassadors and going over there and just continuing to add to our relationship with them and just going over there and loving on them, loving the people and interacting with those kids. And so many of those kids, like you said, they're untouchable kids. And, people, they don't want to have anything to do with them. And it was the whole reason why I even started that school.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because many of them weren't welcome in the government school. And so for you guys to go over there and interact with them and play with them and have, it's had to have had impact, and whenever I go, it's just, me and a couple of other guys and, adults, and we're spending our time with Gopal and the adults, and, we'll go and see the kids and say hi to them and that kind of thing. But, for you guys to go and play with them and play with them for a few days and interact with them, it's just, I know God is, just using that in their lives and as just an amazing, source of encouragement and blessing. And so really thank you guys for going and for taking that time and, spending your break over there ministering to other people instead of laying on the couch and playing video games.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we can't wait to go back. That's for sure.
Yeah. Amen. So thank you. And we want to thank you all for listening. And and so we just ask that you would continue to pray for us and continue to pray for our global missions program. And we got Jim and I have been meeting this past week and making plans for trips over the next few months. And between now and June, we've pretty much have a trip that we're going to be making each month. And so definitely appreciate your involvement and prayers. So thank you all.